Can a business see more success through an MBA-like platform? Welcome to the Fervent 4. Did you know that only 4% of businesses ever cross the annual $1 million revenue mark? Hello, I'm Zack Miller, author of Anomaly. With me today, I have my co-host Tim Ryan, lead man at StartWheel.org. Thank you so much for joining us. The Fervent 4 is a weekly show each and every Thursday at 11 a.m. dedicated to sharing insights into growing a world-class business no matter the climate. Hunter Walsh thinks so and helps run the 757 Startup Studios, a new platform forged at helping local startups succeed. I've never used the word forged before, so hopefully that was the right way to use it in a sentence. What do you think? Did I do okay?
Rolled right off the tongue.
I probably should have looked it up first before. Like, what does the word forged mean? I don't know. I just thought of it, and I was like, oh, that might work. Let's see. Forged. Oh, that might not be the right word. So
we'll just roll with it.
Whatever. Yeah. It's early in the day, right?
Yeah. July 1st, 757 day.
757 day. Only fitting that 757 Startup Studios would have the opportunity to be on your show for such a monumental, the inaugural 757 day.
Yeah.
So thanks so much for having us on the show, and only fitting that it would be on sort of our day.
What is that like? I feel like Marla. Is that the Marla thing that she
I
created?
think that's the Marla thing that they're rolling out this year. So I don't know how they picked July 1st, but nevertheless,
Marla explained that. She was a guest on the show a couple of weeks ago, and 757 day is July 1st because that was the day that they rolled out the 757 area code.
That's right.
Back in the day.
Interesting. If you were to call someone on your cellular or mobile or landline, do you in this area still have to type 757? Do you know? I guess on your cell phone you would have to, but on your landline, do you have to?
No.
I don't have a landline. When I put in my contacts, the area code is there, so I don't know kind of how that works. That's a really
there's a new area code coming to town too, right? When does that start?
That's my understanding. I'm not sure when. I think it's going to be an overlay, whatever that means, but I guess that's a positive that our population is growing to the level of that we need to have an extra area code in our region. So I'll take that as a net positive and gain.
It'll be the new area code will be 948.
Oh, 948. I was hoping for 911. So Hunter, you're born and raised from the area, VB, born and raised. Other than, when have you ever left for a significant time of
I have. So I did my undergraduate in the mountains in Harrisonburg at James Madison University, and then kind of had my quarter life crisis opportunity to kind of reflect, and took about 6 to 9 months off of work and did some solo trips in Europe and kind of all over, making up for lost time there. But 757's always home. Virginia Beach is so awesome to be able to take advantage of all of the amenities. I love eating out at really good restaurants, supporting local. So very exciting to see kind of our region, despite opportunities to continue to improve. The quality of life, the diversity of amenities that it has is second to none. And I think it will always be home for myself and my family.
What was your first taste of startup / small business entrepreneurship life?
It's a whole different world, to be honest with you, that I think that you can be an entrepreneur and run a professional service or a restaurant, and definitely you're going to have some of the same pain points that startups have. But one of the cool things about startup studios and dealing with startup life is that they're so new, oftentimes, that there are limitless opportunities and things that they need to the founders learn more about. Which is really rewarding, being able to kind of leverage the resources and relationships and human capital that you've established through the years to be able to help these founders, connect them with awesome folks like yourselves, and some of the other regional or ecosystem resources in the area. So the terminology, kind of how the pace of work goes, is very different. It's very awesome that no 2 days, no 2 hours are alike. You could walk in thinking that you have your schedule for the week mapped out, and then just one thing leads to another, and you don't really stay on track at all. But I think that it's so rewarding because you can see the immediate impact that you're making oftentimes, because the advice that you're giving them or the kind of where they are in the course of their company, their idea, whatever the case may be, that's really gratifying to be able to connect them and see them turn around and quickly make those changes there. Whereas if you worked for a more established company kind of outside of the startup space, it might take a lot longer to be able to actually see the changes or the fruits of your labor and how that directly impacts the companies that you're running.
I think over the last decade or so, I know over the last decade or so, there's been a ton of programming platforms that have been established for the region, for the businesses, around the same things that you're saying about 75 Startup Studios. Where did you guys see that the need was actually there to start something like this when there's been so many other platforms in the area that have done something very similar or the same? Or when someone asks that questions, how do you actually answer that without saying it's not for everyone or type of thing?
We don't view ourselves competing against any sort of one or entity or organization. That through a lot of the research that we did and the Techstars report that came out last year or earlier this year, that we felt like there was a need to kind of streamline and create a vertically integrated ecosystem to take advantage of the access to capital that 757 Angels has and the investors that they have in their group. 757 Accelerate, which is targeting a little bit more further along concepts that are ready to go to market and start attracting consumers and customers and start raising some seed funding. And then the studios kind of came in to be the physical spot that houses the Angels and Accelerate. We also have ecosystem resources like the Mid-Atlantic Tech Bridge, Techstars, and Oz Minkins, the ecosystem director, is there regularly. And then we have the Hampton Roads Biomedical Research Consortium also have space in the studio. So tapping into those ecosystem resources while also having a program of ourselves targeting early stage, high growth startups that have the potential to grow very fast, offering them rent-free tenancy. So taking a barrier to entry kind of off of the table. That rent is a very significant expense for a lot of these folks there. So making it so that they have 6 months rent-free tenancy with the opportunity, if they hit certain milestones or key performance indicators during that first 6 months, they can qualify for an extra 6 months for a maximum of a 1-year tenancy in the space, while also having subject matter experts, regular office hours, community events, and things like that. So really the secret sauce, if you will, is that you're in a room and in a space with people that are going through the same growing pains and stages of their company like you are. So you can turn around and ask questions, whether it be, hey, we're working on a marketing plan. Do you have any advice or things that we should steer clear of there? So I think that we are trying to position ourselves to be kind of the front door of the ecosystem and startup world in the region there. And you're not going to find an organization or entity that has all of those resources housed in a centralized location in a beautiful office campus in downtown Norfolk to make it easier for these startups to be able to have the access to resources and things that we're able to provide them with.
Yeah, so it's July 1st as we're airing this. When did you guys open the doors for Startup Studios? It's really recent.
May 21st was our move-in day, so we are getting ready to kick off week 6, which is hard to believe. We moved into an entirely new space, new program, but even in that 6 weeks time frame, almost all 12 of our companies have had significant milestones that they've already achieved, whether that be acquiring their first paying customers, to filling out their co-founding team, to unrolling a beta test, whatever the case may be. So that certainly gives us reason for optimism that folks are already seeing value and that the concept is working. That we recently did a poll of all of our founders, and 95% of those folks would recommend startup studios to another founder. So early on, while we're still kind of building up and rounding off our programming there, that people are seeing the value in that, which is certainly cause for optimism and gives us a lot of encouraging signs for what the future holds. Also, I think it's important to note that our 757 Accelerate program had a record number of applicants this year as well. So a lot of trend lines that we're tracking that hopefully we're kind of on the other end of COVID, and now folks are really looking to get out and grow their companies as fast as possible. And the 757 Collab platform certainly provides them with the unique model to be able to scale and grow their companies fast.
So you mentioned the TechStars thing, what do they call that? The report, yes. And so it's interesting. I think a lot of people wouldn't be shocked at that, at some of the stuff in there. But I think a lot of stuff has gone on over the last decade or so. The three of us have done things to try to enhance and better that report. But I mean, when Oz was telling me about some of the things in the report, I'm not necessarily shocked and things like that. Well, knowing what the report said, knowing what the local businesses are potentially looking for, or maybe they don't know what they're looking for and they think they know what they're looking for. What are you guys doing to try to actually fix that, so that I think what's the word? This area has a lot of potential, right? And so how is what you guys doing going to help actually fulfill that potential? To see that TechStars report go better, to see a Kaufman startup ranking get back to where we were before. What is it going to take, or what are you guys doing to see that kind of get to that next level?
It's a drumbeat, and it requires consistent sort of pursuit of excellence and working to achieve that. That we were fortunate enough, I guess it's been almost 2 weeks or so ago, to get one of the largest Go Virginia grants that they've awarded to date. That's going to really position us to be able to scale and hire extra staff to build out the 757 Collab, which will encompass Angels, Accelerate, and Studios there. So with that, we're going to be able to hire a lot of key positions that we've worked really hard to be able to find a way to get them involved. So in terms of creating densities in our ecosystem and reaching new markets and population bases that we haven't been able to reach thus far, that's something that we're really excited about. It's going to be able to give us a little bit of runway to start to continue on the early successes that we've had, whether it be Accelerate and REO and SVT Robotics and a lot of the alumni that have come out of that 757 Angels is one of the most active angel groups in the country, raising almost $77 million for exclusively Virginia headquartered companies there. So we're very excited about that. I think that indirectly is going to address a lot of the shortcomings of that report. And I know that the report, a lot of people agreed with it, and a lot of people raised a lot of eyes and sort of questioned that there. And I think that it goes back to kind of storytelling and doing everything that you can to tell the external community outside of the folks that watch your show and are involved in kind of head on the ground in the startup and entrepreneurial ecosystem.
Think about just the storytelling. Think about just the storytelling aspect of that, right? I mean, there's a company, homes.com, that was just acquired for, 9 figures, 152 million within the last, 6 months. Smithfield and Amerigroup, Ameriprise, something like that, were acquired for billions of dollars, within the last decade. And those are like not talked about stories. If I'm a business owner in this area, or I'm thinking about starting a business, that would be the story that I would want to hear. Hey, by the way, in the next 10, 15 years, you can sell your business for a lot of money. And so if I were you or someone that's in a marketing position to this area, to these entrepreneurs or potentially entrepreneurs, it would be, hey, there is opportunity here. We need to start promoting a lot more of that stuff instead of, I don't know, some of the other stuff that were the non-stories out there. I mean, those are big stories that we don't talk about, and it's like, hey, like let's chat about this.
Totally agree. It's an Achilles heel, I think, of our region for a long time, and it goes well beyond kind of in the context of what we're talking about there. That we do have an awful lot of really great stories, and I think that everybody's looking for those large exits and things like that to validate the model to the highest degree, if you will. And we have had those stories. They haven't gone through kind of our programming, if you will. So it's hard to claim ownership of that, but still.
But that's okay. It's still an area. I mean, the area is an ecosystem. Not everything's going to go through every single thing, right? I mean, it's like.
Wholeheartedly agree.
I mean, 7 Cups of Tea is a company that went through, a random Start Norfolk event, and now they're one of the most successful companies out of the Y Combinator of all time. I don't know that that's actually true. I just made up the most successful aspect of it. But they've done well from a perspective. Am I going to take full claim of that? Absolutely, I'm going to, and say, hey, my event did this thing, and they're the reason why. No, but you can grasp and just say, hey, like our area as a whole is a place where this success can happen. I don't think it has to go through someone's platform, program, whatever. Just because you're in this space doesn't mean that that's the sole reason you're going to be successful. I think it has to be a collection of all of those things that will help. And I think embracing and celebrating, I think that's some of the things that StartWheel in general has in their kind of like wisdoms of what they're trying to do. And that celebrate word, I mean, that's what we're really doing. At the end of the day, to me, it doesn't matter if something goes through someone's platform or not. Is this area something that can see that success?
Absolutely. And to kind of rephrase what I was saying earlier, that those certainly, anytime you have an opportunity to celebrate anything, no matter how small or large, that story should get out. And to Tim's credit and your credit, Zach, that you guys do such a good job of promoting anything and everything that directly, indirectly can improve, help somebody that wants to get in the space, that is in the space there. And we still have a long way to go in improving that. But I think that certainly we're moving in the right direction. And you have to set kind of realistic expectations on what you're able to do. But yes, that not many folks can claim Amerigroup when they exited, and homes.com and all of the sort of spinoffs of Dominion Enterprise and all of those types of things. Certainly those are 757 headquartered, founded, grown organizations there. And certainly that gives credibility that something like that is a reality here. And we hopefully now are continuing to build out the ecosystem so that early stage, middle stage, whatever can work up to that goal when the time comes.
Yeah, I mean, it's really it's interesting to me. You and Zack just mentioned these different companies that have been really, really successful in this area. And that's one of the things about the businesses here is that they're just really focused on doing what they do. They don't really pay attention to what other people are doing. To their credit, they're focused on what it is that they do so they can do it really, really well. So on one side, a lot of people were like, gosh, this area has a storytelling problem because nobody can name any companies that had successful exits. But at the same time, everyone really keeps to themselves and keeps their eye on the ball. An example of that is one of the most successful companies in our area is Grow. They do amazing work. They have huge, huge clients. And a lot of people don't even know who Grow is, or the fact that they're headquartered here, right in our backyard, headquartered in the same building that you're in.
But should they? I mean, is that the businesses? I mean, should they have to be their own cheerleader?
Well, I think that there's a couple of things that I think from that is one, just because we can't name any other businesses that have had successful exits, is that really a problem? Yeah, I mean, because you're asking founders.
Think about it from an athlete or a music perspective. I mean, I bet you could run off, 5 or 6 really big name athletes and 5 or 6 really big name musicians from the area, right? So, I mean, that's a big thing. I mean, maybe we need to start, having people name out 5 or 6 local businesses from that perspective that have done it from the same thing, right? I mean, what are 5?
I mean, Yeah, no, I'm with you. I think you and I are in agreement, Zach, that it's just one of those things that we ask the question to founders, and founders are just very focused in their business. So if you look at the people who were asked from that survey, they were all founders of a company. They weren't, they don't, it's not their job or their responsibility to pay attention to what's going on. But where I was going with all this is the fact that Grow is a really successful company. They're one of the people that we have to really be a cheerleader for as they continue to grow their business. And one of the really cool things that they have recently done is Assembly, which is the building that you're part of. I want you to explain to us about what Assembly is, how Startup Studios is part of within the Assembly building, and how everybody works together.
Absolutely. Assembly is a new office campus that opened up at 400 Granby Street in downtown Norfolk. So it is a 2-phase project. They just finished or are almost finished phase 1, which is 50,000 square feet of total space. Of that, over 15,000 is community or event space. So I'm in one of the recording studios right now. So everyone has access to be able to record their podcast or do anything there. So they have a lot of, the way it's designed is very intentional to really attract designers, creatives like Grow, like Have a Good Day, like Astoria, like Lynch Mikens, or program architects, Rise. So very intentional and deliberate in kind of the tenets there. And it's designed so there are a lot of collision points throughout the space. So you're in an entire environment where you're with like-minded people that are trying to continue to kind of push the status quo and do the impossible, so to speak. So Monique Adams approached Drew years ago and said, when they were in the very early planning stages of Assembly, that they were working on this model and concept at the time called 757 Startup Studios. And it just made so much sense for a model like us to be located in a one-of-a-kind space like Assembly. And it is absolutely terrific. It's class A++ real estate is how I kind of describe it there, that it doesn't look like anything that you can find in the region. And I would challenge that you'd be hard pressed to find anything like that in the Commonwealth as well. So every detail has been thoughtfully designed with something sort of as the end game and what they're trying to accomplish. So we're so lucky to be a part of this space. Our founders are loving it. They're taking advantage of all of the amenities that Assembly has to offer there. And we can't wait to see what phase 2 will lead us here, which I'm total start maybe in a year and a half or so, which will add another 52,000 square feet on. So that's 102,000 square feet all in once that's completed.
It's a lot. I'm interested. So I first met you when you were at the Hampton Roads Chamber, formerly known as the Hampton Roads Chamber of Commerce. I'm going to go with a couple of things here. So there was a big push, what did the chamber teach you kind of about the business community? And was it something that you weren't really that understanding of? What was all that stuff new to you? And so like when we talk about storytelling again, like I feel like there's I'm in the know and this is what I think we should have, and then there's like the general public, the general public who has no idea about these things, right? So do you feel like when you got into that world, that was more of you, like you were the general public and then they taught you all this stuff? Or kind of how were you in that? And then how did what you did at the chamber kind of open your eyes to what the hashtag 757 was all about?
Absolutely. So I honestly didn't even know what a chamber was or did until I started working there. That I wish I would have known about it many years ago in another life doing something else. But the chamber taught me an awful lot from a business to business standpoint, being able to interact with legislators and work with a diverse group of companies from small mom and pops and solopreneurs all the way up to the largest employers in the region and everything in between there. So to really understand the pain points, the access to information, kind of how to go about getting what you need done in our region, that those relationships, the events that we were able to put on and execute, and then just staying in the know with what's happening, I think made me certainly uniquely positioned to be able to help a wide variety of people. I think so much of kind of what you do and what I'm doing now and what I did with the chamber was just simply listening to people. And a lot of times people know or think they know what they need, but they don't know how to go about accomplishing that. So
which is interesting too, as listening to then try to, like, I think a lot of people will say, hey, I want this thing. And actually it's probably not true that that's what they need. They need something else. And so to really kind of recognize that, and then it's something against that person, that business, that whatever. It's just saying like, hey, you think you need this because this is what's being talked about, but it actually sounds like you need this other thing over here that no one's talking about. And so it's interesting that you brought that up as like you're listening and they don't really kind of grasp. It sounds like that they needed something different, because people say, I need capital. And it's like, do you really need capital? I mean, to me, that's the big one in the areas where people say, I need capital. And it's like, well, what would you do if I gave you $100,000? Well, I don't know. It sounds like you don't need capital then.
No, you're exactly right. That I think that a lot of people are misinformed with kind of the information or the next steps or where they need to go and take their company. And raising outside capital isn't the right or best decision for all companies, and that's okay. There are plenty of companies that don't need to go that route. Certainly, kind of in the space that we're in, that's a little bit different than a lot of the companies that I had the privilege of working with at the chamber. But it just goes to show that by asking the right questions, by listening to get to the root cause of kind of what they're looking for, that it provides an opportunity to educate them and empower them and open up their eyes to, I think, looking at their problem or situation through a different lens, which is much more impactful and ultimately will help them in ways that they didn't even know they needed the help in, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. So one more thing about the chamber. So the chamber is, I believe, one of, if not the cornerstone in trying to rebrand the area for the 15,000th time. And the thing that they came up with, is that true? The chamber is one of the aspects in that, from that perspective?
Along with a lot of other stakeholders, kind of led the charge to start the conversation and yep.
Okay, so that being said, they came up with 757 being the area name. Whether that's the final answer, whatever, that's irrelevant to the point I want to make. Now, there's still the Hampton Roads Chamber, though. Should they have changed the name to 757 Chamber in your mind? Is that something that, like, because you had all these organizations that seem to have that name tied to it or some sort of regional alliance name. regional tagline to it, and then they were saying we support the 757 moniker. Do you think that, and I know you don't work there anymore, but like, do you think that's something that they should have then changed and said, hey, we're the 757 chamber? Or what were your kind of outside thoughts or inside thoughts at the time on that? Because I feel like it's somewhat misleading. I know that they had said a little bit more context is, hey, we still are going to be Hampton Roads, we're still going to be Norfolk, we're still going to be Tidewater, all these things, but the overall, region is going to be the 757. Was that they're out to then keep that name, or like, because it just seems kind of like, hey, we support this, but not really. What were your thoughts on, hey, we want the 757, but we're still going to be this other thing? Should they have changed it in there?
I think that it's no right or wrong answer. That when you look at kind of how that went about, that and looking at some of the options, Coastal Virginia, Southeastern Virginia, Hampton Roads, that 757 was already being used. You talked about athletes earlier in the show. The 757 athletic hotbed has been that we have been known for that for, I would say, the last 20, 25 years, if not longer than that. And how people use it, they were looking at it when you looked at the raw data in a very positive connotation. It was already being used on social media. If you had a heat map of where it was, because of the military and how transient our populations is, there were heat maps from San Diego to all over kind of the world where people were already using it. And it was almost neutral. So you could create your own slate and get everybody behind this pride building campaign and kind of turn 757 into their own. So I think, speaking to your point from earlier, that the vision was never to change Hampton Roads or Virginia Beach or anything like that, but to offer it kind of like Hampton Roads, a 757 community, or Virginia Beach or Oceana, happy to be a part of the 757 team there, and to let kind of organizations and the private sector run with it and incorporate it in their marketing material, however made sense to them. It was unfortunate with COVID and everything. I think some of the marketing plans and things that they had were obviously paused, but I'm told that that's going to get revamped here very soon. So I think that there's a lot of misconceptions on kind of what that means. And I'm still hearing it's just an area code, and it's so much more than an area code. So I want to put that to rest. While yes, it is used in our area code, the meaning and kind of the intentionality and why it was chosen is so much more. It's almost unfortunate that it also is our area code. If we were 312, and I'm just throwing out a number, it would almost, I think, be easier to kind of communicate the vision behind that. And you're dealing with such a polarizing topic. You have a group of folks that feel very strongly that Hampton Roads is still it. My grandfather still refers to this area as Tidewater. Mm-hmm. A lot of people in Norfolk, Virginia. So you're still going to have those types of things. I think the 757 was meant to be a unifying thing that through
similar to what RVA did with RVA, even though it's, it's just a new moniker type of thing.
That was an example that was used. Yes. So to try to do that and to let it so everyone can have ownership. So if Tim wanted to kind of tweak his StartWheel logo, he could somehow incorporate the 757 into that if it made sense. Certainly not expected, but to have that option to be able to do that was.
So is that something that you think that a lot of people are trying to get behind, is to incorporate 757 into stuff? And that's the vision from the way that you saw it? Because I don't know that I've heard that the inclusion aspect of that, or that's something that they wanted people to kind of celebrate in the same kind of way.
That was the original intent. Like I said, unfortunate timing just for a lot of founders that were trying to unroll products and just traditional stores and retail and restaurants that were just trying to stay alive in these past 18 months, that there was a really good marketing plan that was set to roll out March, April of 2020, and that was completely hit with a pause there. I think
What happened in March, April of 2020? If you're watching this 10 years from now, you might not know.
Right.
So
you'd be like,
with the COVID pandemic, all of that. But I think
yes.
now you're going to start to see a lot of those efforts and things coming, like 757 day, to start just general awareness that a lot of initiatives like that go from the top down. And I think with something like this, it needs to be an organic reach, that you need to get, like you were talking about earlier, the general population to get behind something like this for it to truly have the impact that it can. And if you don't get that buy-in from those stakeholder groups and populations, then chances are perhaps we might be having the same conversation in 10, 20 years again.
All right, so I know Tim's got a question, and I don't mean to stop him, but you're saying something that I feel like it needs more to. So you just said, we want to see things that are bottoms up, right, instead of top down. But it sounds like a lot of the stuff that you guys are creating and you've been behind are very much top down. So that being said, and a lot of those organizations don't have people on the ground level that are actually doing it from the, bottom up. How do you guys actually support that, or what's the vision to actually support things like that? Because I hear, we support 757 day and things like that, but you don't see the Marlas at those meetings, is my guess. You don't see these people that are doing these, this little meetup.com/startup night being at these events, and you don't see the people at those organizations at those events and back and vice versa. And so I hear what you're saying, but I don't necessarily believe that I see that type of thing actually happening. So then how do you guys actually support that and make it happen so that these things that you guys want to see come to fruition actually get there and that you guys know about it?
That's not an easy question to answer. That a lot of that was kind of me speaking and wearing my old chamber hat, and then I'm not trying to
put you on the spot, but I realize that I am, right. And so, we've heard for years on this show that people believe that a lot of the organizations just do this, right? They just yap it off and they never come to these other events. They don't know what's going on the ground level. There's tons of events on the ground level that are popping up, right? And you never see them attend these events, or if they do, it's in kind of a politician kind of way. I show up for 10 minutes, say hello, kiss, shake hands, do the Michael Scott bow and kiss babies type of thing, right? And they're not actually engaged in the same way. And so I believe that is something that's incredibly important, that if these top organizations, and it doesn't matter who they are, right, they're going to say they want startups to be this thing, then they need to actually include them in the things that are happening in the startup level, and not just show up for the thing that's sexy that one time of year where they can, be a politician, if you will.
No, you're exactly right. I mean, like I talked about earlier, it's a process that certainly we've made strides, but there's significant room for improvement. Just like with any organization, it's a resource constraint issue. And at the end of the day, you have to do and sort of allocate the work that you're doing on what's going to directly impact the mission that you have at hand. And while certainly for no lack of effort and trying on my part and all of our parts, it's just impossible to be at all things all at the same time while still being tasked with kind of doing what your roles and responsibilities are within the organizations and companies that you work for there. That was more just kind of a general observation, and that I was a part of some of the young professional groups and outreach and things that they did there. And I mean, this is an interconnected, super complex issue. And I think that's probably obviously one of the reasons why that there's no clear path here, and why a lot of things haven't worked to the level that I think a lot of the experts and thought leaders thought that they would, because it is very challenging to do what you're talking about. And we're always open for suggestions and opportunities. And if anybody watching this has any events or things that you think that myself or anyone from our team should attend or listen, we're always available. I can share my contact info with the group that we want to be a part of those conversations. We want to hear your pain points. We want to get on the ground level and truly understand to the very best of our ability What's holding you back? What's top of mind? What are your concerns? So then we can go back to kind of our team and resources that we have to then kind of reverse engineer the problem so that we can give you all of the help and resources that are available at our disposal so that we are capturing your community and the populations that you're speaking of.
And I would say that to you. I would say that to anyone in any organization. I would make that exact same statement. I've been doing that for a decade, and I think that's what helped me accelerate me to get to where I did in my career. And so I wasn't just putting you on the field saying let's play ball. It's like I will continue to push people to stop just saying something and to actually be there and do it too, because I think a lot of people that are doing some tremendous things in this region on the ground level are looking for that support from other people and want to see that thing happen. And I'm just someone pushing it a little bit further as I will continue to do.
Thank you, Zach, and to sort of hold everyone accountable and put words into actions.
Yeah, so, love me or hate me, but I'm going to push it. So
well, I mean, it's one of those things where that I'm really proud about StartWheel about is the fact that we are very grassroots, very ground level, and I go to all the events. I am at the meetups. I go to whatever I possibly can go to meet these companies and work with companies, and very founder friendly. And a lot of it is, in my opinion, is an easy fix in terms of how can we all better collaborate. I mean, it's amazing when everybody works together how much more you're able to accomplish, because now you don't have to do everything. So there's always room for more collaboration. From that standpoint, that would make the lift easier for everybody. But I mean, to your credit, Hunter, I hear from folks that a lot of times or almost all the time, that you're the first one in the office in the morning and you're the last one to leave in the evening. And that said, what are the biggest surprises that you have encountered as your role with Startup Studios? And if you were king for a day, what would be something that you would implement to try to overcome those challenges that you've observed?
We really have been blessed. We have such an incredible group of 12 early stage founders in a wide variety of industries. 83% of our initial 12 companies that are in the studios come from underrepresented founders, which is something that we're exceptionally proud about there. I think from kind of just how I am wanting to always help folks, that the way that this is and the program is scheduled, that there is, I would say, daily, if not hourly, contact with a lot of the founders there. So we're always open doors. So being able to immediately get somebody an answer or something like that is truly impactful, and something that if they weren't in the space might take them a week to get that answer. And a week in startup world is like a month when you're not kind of in that space there. So nothing.
What's the book, Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich? He says something along the lines of, why start at level 0 on the ground level when you can start at like step 6, right? And so I think that's to your point of saying, hey, like if you can get those people there, that's powerful. And I think that's great. And like you said, yeah, I mean, some of these you're making, oh God, SVT guy, what was his name? AK Schultz would say, I'm making 3,000 decisions in a day, and that's kind of what you're getting at, Hunter. It can be wild in that kind of case. Where do you guys find these companies? Because underrepresented areas. We had Nick on a few weeks ago, and he's not even from here, and so you just hear these stories about people. It's how are you guys finding these people that even Tim and I don't know about yet?
Yeah, it really takes a community and to get the word out that we had 48 applicants for 12 spots for the studios. Accelerate, like I mentioned before, had a record number there. So just leveraging your network there. I think now we're starting to get and be continue to be kind of well respected in the space, to the point where actually the majority of the applicants for these things are from outside of the region. So what that tells me is that we need to do more reach within our communities. While we do have representation from a wide variety of the municipalities in Hampton Roads with the studios, would love to see more applicants there. So anybody who's watching.
What's your pulse of the, and I think that's going to get to where your point was going to be, but like, what is your pulse of like the local community wanting to start businesses though? Do you think that maybe it's just not as heavy as some people think it is? I mean, and maybe that's a question for both of you, but like, I feel like it was really exciting up until about 2015. And because that's kind of when Shark Tank and everything was really taking off, and you had that 2010 to 2015 timeframe where people were really pushing it, starting a business. And I don't know, over the last few years, I feel like it's not as big of a thing, and maybe COVID has really pushed it down too. But like, do you think that people still want to start a lot of businesses? Do you think that application pool can be higher locally? What is the pulse of the local, potential, the pool of entrepreneurship in the region?
You want to take that, Tim, first?
Yeah, I would love to. I think that going into something like this, you have to have a 5 to 10 year plan.
The potential person taking 5 to 7 years.
Yeah, for the business to have, it's going to take 5 to 10 years in order to see the outcomes that are going to be deemed successful. And to your point, Zach, we have this Shark Tank type effect where it's the 7-year overnight success story. So we have what people don't realize. So what we have is we have different groups. So that we have, and this is not geared towards 757 per se, but we have accelerators and we have seed investors and angel investors. And then we also have a lot of these pre-revenue companies. And so we're kind of like right in the middle where we have a lot of companies that aren't necessarily investable yet. They don't have the product market fit. They are not generating the revenue to become investable. So then we have to put more fuel on the fire to get more investable companies. What we really need is just to focus on what we have and to continue to feed that pipeline, because we're being very impatient.
You know what's interesting is, as you're saying that, I'm recalling reading Brad Feld's book, who's the guy who started Techstars, which is the report that we've talked about a little bit. I believe that when he was doing, and he's from Boston, if I recall, he moved to Boulder at some point. I believe he said that Boulder was going to take, it took 20 years for them to really see the result that they wanted. And so it's interesting, as you're saying that, I started Hatch, the things I was doing at Hatch in like early 2010. We're 11 years into that. I mean, we're barely at 55% of that. And so we still got 45% to go off of just if that's, patient zero, which obviously it isn't. But like if what Hatch did, was starting, and I do think it had, the nucleus of doing a lot of the great things, but like we're only a couple years into that.
Right, and every time we start something new, we're essentially taking 2 steps backwards, because now we're bringing on a whole bunch of new companies that have all this hope and promise. But
they got to start, if anyone that's starting in 21, you're looking at 20 years from that to really see that number. So you're looking at 41. That's interesting. I mean, as a community, they're very impatient. I mean, 20 years. I mean, think about it. I mean, that's 2/3 of your mortgage, a 30-year mortgage. I've only paid,
And the thing, and the challenge is that we've got to reinvest.
You're growing a child,
right?
And then, your kid's 2 years into college, yeah.
But if we continue to get funded from a state, local, federal level, all of these organizations operate on fiscal years. So we don't know what's going to happen from one fiscal year to the next. So then if a politician decides, well, I'm not getting the returns that I want to this year or next year, then they need to start showing to their constituents, well, we got to do something, because I don't want to be viewed as the person that's flushing money down, this direction that's not getting a return. So then we shift focus yet again. So we just got to stick to the plan and see everything through, as opposed to constantly calling an audible from one year to the next.
Omaha.
Exactly. Because you and I, Zach, we've been in this game. You've been in the game a little longer than I have, but the companies that we first started seeing and working with, they are now getting to the point where we're seeing those types of returns. Whether if it's a Carey Norfolk, whether if it's a 7 Cups, whether it's SVT Robotics, right?
Or it's the people associated with that, right? So I think oftentimes too, it's not just the company. And that's something that I think is a big aspect of it. Is it might not be the company that is doing it, but it might be their second, third, fourth incarnation of a different of something, and those individuals are there, right? And I think we've seen that multiple times as well, right? When I first met Bo Turner of now people would know him of the 757 Makerspace, he was pitching this thing called Zombie Tag, which a lot of people learned about him with. And then it was, 2 or 3 incarnations of Bo Turner and what he wanted to do as a business. And then the Makerspace became this thing that he is I believe, pursuing to different aspects of the region as well. But I mean, what person, it's the person who was there. And so oftentimes it's, where is that person going to be on that? I mean, look, even with you and with me, like, a lot of people know me from Hatch. If you really think about it, Hatch was it was a few steps or later than some of the other things that I'd started. A lot of people might know you from something else. I mean, when I first met you, you were pitching, gosh, I even think that you were pitching that app from what's his name? From Rob.
Oh yeah.
That was right.
Startup
I mean,
checklist.
so like startup checklist. So like it happens, and then you're still here, yet you're not doing the thing from before. And it's not that, you quote unquote failed, as so many people would say. It was like, no, I figured out this other thing that was better.
It just takes time.
So, Hunter, I mean, I met Hunter at a different thing, I think 5 years ago at a Portsmouth partnership. What was that thing called? Lefko, at a Lefko meeting, right? And so like, I knew you as a different person. I don't even know if you were at the chamber at that point, right? And so here you are again, different incarnations of Hunter Walsh, and you're still the same person, in theory, but you have so much more knowledge in there that's more powerful. And so I think that's something else that we need to be thinking about as an area is, okay, what's going on there, right? I know Pharrell from that song 13 years ago, but Pharrell's a heck of a lot better than that now. And that's a big thing, that Daft Punk song,
Yeah. We just got to give it time. Give it time.
There you go. What's funny? I was looking for something this morning, and I was looking in I have like a box that I was looking for something in this box, and in this box it still had a watch, and this watch isn't like your watch, Tim, like the iWatch or like a Garmin. I don't know what kind of watch you have, Hunter, but it's just one of those ones that doesn't. What is it? What kind of watch is that? Is it an iWatch?
It's an Apple Watch.
Yeah, an Apple Watch. Yeah, and so this watch is just like a normal watch. The battery goes in, it just keeps going. I look at it today, it's the right date and it's the right time. And I haven't touched it in 2 years. And so it's kind of like that, it's just the watch is still going. And as ridiculous of a story as that is, that's exactly what you're talking about, Tim, is you just got to give it time. You just got to hopefully that the conditions are right and let it be itself, because most of us aren't doing the day-to-day in these businesses. We're not doing the day-to-day in these businesses that we're helping support. And we just need to make sure that we set the conditions for them to succeed. Actually, I think that's a line that your old boss, Hunter, would have said, something that's a Brian Stevens kind of thing. We're here at the chamber, we're setting the conditions to do whatever. Did I do a good Brian Stevens person?
Right on the money.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, Hunter, I have a question. So you had mentioned earlier in the show that you guys are focused on high growth companies, and you have a ton of applications coming in. The outreach is strong. So when a company presents itself to you all and they don't meet the parameters of being high growth, what do you do to those companies? Just say, hey, thanks a lot, you don't meet our criteria, or who do you turn them to? Who do you hand them off to? And what do you tell them?
It's sort of a case by case, because obviously, depending on kind of what industry and what they're doing depends on what resources that they then get referred to. But certainly everyone that takes the time to apply gets a personalized response there, whether that be turning them to Josh Green at ICAP Virginia, which is a program of the SBDC, or letting Jim Carroll and his team work their magic and really fine tuning some of the more core fundamental things so they become a more attractive candidate in future years and rounds there. It just depends. That we're lucky, I would say, as a Commonwealth, to have a lot of resources that a lot of states don't have access to. And then in the region too, that there's certainly, whether it be just inviting them to some events or connecting them with mentors, we try to do everything that we can to give them some constructive feedback to improve. So next year, they're much stronger positioned to be able to have whatever outcome they're hoping to achieve.
Awesome. One of the things that we've talked about before the show started, and I had mentioned about your work ethic, I had learned about the farming aspect that you grew up with. What did you learn from the farming, growing up in the farming industry, and how does that apply towards business today? Because I mean, it's just one parallel that I see off the bat is that work never ends. But I'm curious, you being in this firsthand in both of those different sectors, how do they parallel one another?
There's definitely a correlation between putting in the hours and getting whatever you want in return. So certainly hard work is tremendous.
Here's a couple pictures of the farm too that I was looking at earlier.
Yeah, that's their new market that they have on about 300 acres in rural Virginia Beach in the Creeds area there. But I think that with anything, that it's incredible to, when you're doing so much, that you're learning on the fly, and you really don't realize what you're learning until you have time to kind of unwind and unpack everything that you did learn. And you don't realize that you're coming up with marketing plans or helping people or touching thousands of people a week until you take time to like reflect.
Well, and real quick, I mean, so this is another perfect example in the sense of, as a farmer, sometimes you have to prep the soil years in advance before you even can yield the crop that you're trying to grow. So, I mean, that's another direct parallel when it comes to doing what you're doing from a startup studio standpoint. This company may not be investable for several years, so you're just prepping the soil at this point.
You're planting those seeds, absolutely. You could take apple trees, for example, where you have to place your order a year or 2 years in advance, and then you plant them. And then you have to wait 2 or 3 years before they start even harvesting something. So not necessarily an attractive investment from most things. And then there's ongoing maintenance and things. And it's the same way with the startups. It goes back to setting realistic expectations, managing those appropriately, and then making yourself accessible and realizing that these are fluid. They are going to change. That is a part of the process in your journey, and that is A-OK, that we're going to be here to support you every step of the way and leverage our networks to get you whatever answers or counseling that you need so you feel really confident in the decisions and the path that you have moving forward.
And another parallel, I'm sorry, Zach, I'm rolling with this right now, is you plant thousands and thousands of seeds and hope to get just a few of them that is going to generate the crops that you need, which is another aspect that 80% of all businesses when they start are going to fail. So, I mean, again, it's just constantly overseeding and working with these companies in order to hope that you're going to be able to produce something.
A lot of parallels.
Do you think that the stakeholders really grasp that concept of pivots, maybe not doing it as fast as they want to? And I guess a simple yes or no on that. But then off of that, like, it's hard though, because this is a completely, talk about storytelling, this is a completely different sell, right? Where like if they're typically investing in, just your standard market, right? Like, okay, like I understand what kind of return I'm going to get on that. And here it's like, give me 25 grand, give me 100 grand, give me $1 million, and you're probably going to lose it. Right. So how do you grasp that? How do you sell that story to someone? Like, I mean, I don't think that's an easy sell, right? I think you have to find the right person in that. And I think that's something like, I remember when some of the funds that we raised with Hatch, I would go to these individuals who are wealthy individuals, and I would say, hey, I want your money. And then I'd be like, oh yeah, by the way, I'm going to lose all of it. And honestly, I think that helped me raise more money because they realized that, hey, like, we realize this is risky. And like, to me, it was like, I always wanted to have more people write smaller checks because I wouldn't feel as bad when I lost all that money than having a few checks written by a few people. And so I don't know, maybe that's some advice for people is like, go get a lot of different checks from people, not 1 or 2 checks from one person, so that when you do lose all their money, which inevitably you may do, you don't feel as bad when you write that check. Because let me tell you, when there's a couple of funds that basically lost people money. It was very difficult writing those emails, talking to these people, letting them know that, hey, by the way, even though I told you I was going to lose your money, like, I'm crying telling you this story because I feel bad. And that's a true story. Like, it was an emotional thing. I felt like I failed these individuals, even if I did, tell them I predetermined that I was going to lose their money too. But
the numbers are certainly stacked against you, but we're doing everything that we can to change that rhetoric, to be able to make it so that 9 out of 10 startups won't fail there. And I think it goes back to we have kind of a walk, crawl, run mentality that we try to empower and teach our founders. And I think so many times the founders are just sprinting, running a marathon, and are so excited or that they feel this pressure to go out and raise funds and all of this stuff. And it's like they skipped over the walking and the crawling. So the foundation to scale and to get that kind of sets them up in a challenging spot there. And then I think most importantly that we very much subscribe to, while all of you are founders, that we're people first, and to have that human element that if you aren't whole as a person, your company will suffer. So to really focus and dive deep and making sure that everything from you personally, from me as Hunter Walsh, is as strong as it can be. So then I can devote and critically think and do everything that I can and give that to the companies.
That's powerful. Hunter, it's been an absolute blast chatting with you. Appreciate it. You guys might have noticed that Tim is wearing a 757 shirt. I'm pretty sure he got that shirt from you. This is also an opportunity for Tim and I to tell you that if you have some sort of swag that you want Tim and I to wear on air, like maybe this Array Digital hoodie, or maybe their hat that you want to put on or something like that, Tim is wearing the 757 shirt. I'm rocking some swag myself. Please feel free to reach out to us. We would be happy to wear your shirts, your gloves, your jackets, your hats, whatever. There is a fee involved for it. We can discuss that at a later time what that fee is, but we would be happy to wear your memorabilia to help promote it live right here on air. I mean, that's a pretty nice looking shirt you got there, Tim. I mean, it feels feels pretty good there. And
on 757 day, it's a nice shirt. I appreciate that, Hunter.
Yeah, A for Array or Apple, or that's the only letter I can't think of any other words. But
I write all my notes in my 757 notebook.
All right, what else? Oh, you know what? This community college, Northern Virginia Community College, right there. What else do I got? Oh. And if you wrote a book, pull out your books in here. We don't normally do all that, but hey.
Right over there.
If you want us to wear your things, there's a price for everything, as the $1 Million Man of WWE used to say. Hunter, it's been an absolute blast. Appreciate you being here. And you guys should definitely check out the 757 Startup Studios and everything that they are doing. Hunter, appreciate it. Tim, good to see you. And
good to see you too. Thanks, Hunter.
Thanks, guys.
Cheers.